Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another episode of JamTalk. My name is Rachel Dolcine, and I am the chair for the Jamaica Diaspora Worldwide Organization Task Force. You can see it on the logo behind me. We're going to say JDWOT because to say all that, it's a lot. It's a lot. So we're just going to say JDWOT for this interview. So we've been bringing interviews of Jamaicans around the globe, both in Jamaica and out, who are doing amazing work in the community. This episode of Jam Talk is really special because we have two amazing young ladies who I'm going to be talking with today about the work that they are doing when it comes to developing Jamaica. We have Shauna, who's from Canada, and we have Morgan, who is in Jamaica. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a second. But this conversation is really important, and I'm going to tell you why. We know that, the longevity of any work, whenever we plan longevity when it comes to charity work, we have to always look to the future. We have to always be building those bridges. We have to be mentoring the younger generation so that the work continues. Because if we're not doing that, as we age out of the work, as we gain our wings, we don't want the work to die with us, right? We want the work to continue to live. So beyond us and live after us. And so that means that we have to engage the young people, young Jamaicans who are in communities doing the work, who are interested in doing the work, but may not know where to start. So this conversation today is really a very frank and open conversation with both Shauna and Morgan about the work they're doing. But we're going to talk a lot about, what the more seasoned charity folks, do-gooders, I call them do-gooders, need to be doing to connect with the younger generation. Right now, I'm on the older end of the younger generation. So I'm aged out of the 40 and under crowd, but it's really important for us to continue to engage and connect with the generation that's gonna carry on the work after we left the arena, who's gonna keep doing it. So Shauna and Morgan, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
No problem, no problem. So I'm gonna have you both briefly introduce yourself. I'm gonna start with Shauna. If you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, anything you want us to know.
Sure. All right. Well, hi, everybody. And thanks again, Rachel, for inviting me on this show. I look forward to sharing what I have. I'm a Jamaican-born Canadian. Been in Canada for well over 25 years. I stopped counting after about 20 years. Who I've been working for the provincial government for the last over 10 years, and within Canada, that is. And I actually went back to school in Jamaica back in 2015. I went back to do a master's degree in business at the University of West Indies. And that was a time when I actually got to really connect to my cultural roots. So basically I spend most of my time in the work world within like the criminal justice sector. And I volunteer for the Jamaica Canadian Association. I've been doing that actually right after I came back from Jamaica. I felt this desire, which we'll talk about. I love track, jogging, exercise, and writing, and all kinds of things. So
awesome. Thank you, Shauna. Morgan.
Hello. Thank you so much again, Rachel, for having me. Well, my name is Morganne Kellier. I'm currently living in Jamaica. I'm an attorney at law who practices at the public bar, which I can say has been inspired by my passion and love for service. Ever since I've known myself, I've always been in some type of service activities from prep school straight up to the university level. And I currently now serve on the Street People Liberation Organization, where we do feeding of the homeless, and not just feeding of the homeless, but also trying to reintegrate them into society. So trying to help them to find jobs after they've been beat down, homes, and that sort of thing, so that they're not so unattached or neglected from the society. I think service is really important. I know it might sound so cliche, but you know, to serve others is really to your own benefits and to your development. And so I hold near and dear that to my heart. And so I'm really excited to join the conversation about, you know, the benefits of serving and how we can make other persons join serving and, you know, make it on a larger scale for young people.
Awesome. So what parishes do you guys represent?
Well, I probably represent St. James. I just actually recently, I am the now past immediate Miss Festival Queen for St. James.
Oh, nice.
And everyone knows that I proudly represent the parish of St. James, born and raised there, even though I'm not working there now. I actually work in Westmoreland, but still on the west side. But I proudly represent St. James, Montego Bay, St. James. Yes.
Nice.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
or it may be multiple parishes.
Okay. I would say that I represent Kingston.
Okay.
And I say that because I went to high school in Kingston, and I when I went back to school in Kingston, so I feel like I know it more. But I was also raised in St. Catherine, and my father's side of the family is from Clarendon, and my mother's side is from St. Mary. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. So we have between the two of you, we have a lot of crossover for me. Yes. So I claim Westmoreland because Pittsfield. That's where my grandmother raised me until I came here, but I was actually born in St. Mary, which is where my father's family's from. Okay. And my mom's family is Westmoreland. So between the two of you, Morgan, you work in Westmoreland.
Yes.
See, we have.
Yes.
Yes.
So that is awesome. All right. Wonderful. So let's get to it, because I don't want to hold you guys too long during this conversation, because we're going to have many others around this topic. So I want to start by asking you what or who inspired you to get into community service? And I'll start with you, Morgan.
No problem. So I would say my older brother, we're very close mates. He's actually, I just want to give him my shout out. He's actually just been recently selected as Achievement Scholar to study his master's in law at the University College of London. Yes. Right. But yes. Right. So he encouraged me to do various things, but because he was always ahead of me, I would have seen him in service activities and various service clubs. So we would have like Rotary Club. It would be Builders Club at the preparatory school level. Then I would see him get involved in other activities, and I just saw him sometimes even just inviting friends over and doing things with them to help other people. Sometimes he would just tutor on the veranda, a class, you know. And so for that, me seeing that and just seeing how excited that he got about doing all of that, I was like, you know, I should try this out. And then me just now starting to find my own way and charting my own path and getting involved in different activities, there birthed my love for just wanting to give back and help other people. And like I said earlier, what was the greatest thing that I learned from that, or I saw and observed from that, is how it helped him as an individual and how it helps you as an individual. So not only helping the other people, but how much you gain from teaching and then inherently learning from the other people. So I would say my brother inspired me to get involved in service, and my mom too, because, you know, I would just see her in the community helping others. Some days she'll just go out to my neighbor to check on her to see how she's doing, you know, just to clean up the area, to give back to people in the community. So those are the things I've always been exposed to service and people in my family doing service in the smallest of ways. And so I would say my family started it for me.
Awesome. Shauna?
I would say the high school that I attended, I went to Father Michael McGivney High School in Markham, Ontario, Canada. And one of the expectations in high school is that we are supposed to do a certain amount of hours, volunteer hours. And the first time I would say that I volunteered was I volunteered at a hospital in Markham, and then I also volunteered at a daycare center, and I think that's where it started. And I just I went to university and I continued. I actually volunteered at a community center, and I know I got paid to work in the military, but I like it's still service.
Yeah.
So I actually did that during university, and I think that's like me building up like what I understand volunteering felt like. It felt like you're learning something. It felt like you're connecting with people. And I knew that it had an impact on how my career would be directed. So then by the end, almost at the end of university, I volunteered at a probation office, which was in line with what I was studying, which was criminology and political science at the time. And like basically at that age, I understood how you're building skills in the volunteering. And so I continue to do it. I know that even within like the probation world, most times you don't even get that interview. It comes out of volunteering. Maybe you give a year and you get to build your network. So very soon I learned that it's volunteering is always a two-way street, right? You learn, you get from it, you get the networking, you get the like you're building your connections, you're giving back to community, and you're impacting whomever you're serving. So so that's the beginning of my serving the community, and it just continued and flourished through that.
So I want to stay here for a little bit because you began to list just the benefits that you got from volunteering. And then Morgan, when she was talking, she talked about how community service and giving back, there's something in it for you too, right? It's not just the people who are benefiting from it. And I know one of the things that I often hear when I talk to young people about volunteering is the connection between, well, what's in it for me? If I'm not getting paid to do this, what is in it for me? So I want to spend a little bit of time on this one because I think this is the crux of the matter, right? When it comes to the current generation, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. And when folks come to volunteer for the organization I started or want to be on the board, I always ask them, what do you want to get out of this? Because you're right, Shauna, it's a two-way street. You have to, as you're pouring out, what are you getting from the organization that you are serving with? Because that's what keeps you motivated and going, right? So for the two of you, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about specifically what you have gotten out of your volunteer experiences. I'm gonna go back to you, Shauna, because I know you already started listing some examples of what you've gotten. So besides what you've already noted, are there any other notable things you've gotten or opportunities you've gotten and you know it's because you volunteered at community service?
Yeah. Yeah, I've listed, the building of the skills. I've listed like the networking. It's like you're giving back to your community. It allows me to, it gives me opportunities to make an impact and to contribute. And it's like you're having fun in a space that it's like a learning opportunity, but you're having fun in it because it's not like there's no obligation. Like the expectation, you can leave at any time you want. But there is still a commitment. And a lot of times too, even like I told you about that probation job, there's certain volunteer positions that are commitments. Like as much as you're not getting paid for it, they need you to be there. You have to go through the whole, security checks. Like specifically, we're talking about the probation position. And yeah, just like staying there. An example is, let's just again stay with that probation one. It helped me to see what it is that I want, what was going to do in my future. So that impacted me. It's directly connected to my studies. And then it's in the end through that. And in fact, actually, one of the manager of that probation officer ended up being a deputy in a position that I later took on. I was a youth services officer, so I basically continued in that trend of working within that. It was like a youth probation office, and then I ended up getting a position as a youth services officer within that correction field. And like about 2 years later, that manager at that office became the deputy in my current position. And I just thought it was just like interesting. And this is how networking work out. You're in the field, you don't know who you're gonna connect with, but like, you know what? After over 10 years of working in this Ontario public service sector, I understand now the power of networking. Sometimes you just can't get places without that network. Absolutely. You can't get places without the allyship. You can't get there alone, right? No matter how amazing our education is. We could have gone to the Harvard, but the reason why you go to the Harvard is to build that network of connection. It's not only just about the paper that you graduated from school. And I think that when you're young, and yeah, I was there, you graduate from university, and I'm gonna wrap up right now. And you think that I was so amazing, and I got to the highest point of my education, and so now I can stand on this. But the fact is, you still end up in that place where you have to work and build the network, and so that you can get, and it takes a while to actually accomplish that bigger goal that you want. So bottom line is that one of the most important things is networking. That comes out of volunteering.
And I'll say amen to that. Morgan?
I will say a double amen to that, because that is my biggest point to sell volunteering and community service and that sort of thing. Because I always tell young people, your network builds your net worth. And that is like true words I've never heard spoken. Though I know we're a generation of instant gratification, or my mentor, the Learn DPP, would say, Miss Paula Vanessa Llewellyn, she'd always say we're a pop microwave generation. We just want to pop, we want to get everything now. But one of the most important things about service, like Shauna would have said, is really your networking. And that is something that you cannot pay for. Meeting people who will put you in places and rooms, call your name in rooms where you get opportunities because of how passionate you were, or the level of professionalism you may have shown. Because like Shauna, we too have to do service hours when we're, and those things, when persons see how you operate on the job, knowing that you're not getting paid, you know what I mean? These are the things people will take into consideration when they're not ready to hire you, when they're not ready to give you an opportunity, when you're not ready to get an award at the national or the international or the regional level. So I tell young people, I meant with Shauna, because the biggest lesson out of service is network. A lot of big heads getting to giving back, and the people that you meet. Sometimes I think through service I would have gotten scholarships to finish my education free of cost to my family. You know what I mean? So those are the opportunities that you really cannot put even money to. Those are things that I would never say that I could buy through my entire lifetime. As Shauna would have said as well, the skills that you learn and the lessons that you learn, and not just lessons for your career or an academic pursuit, but the life lessons that you learn. These things are priceless. And so I would encourage anybody to take the opportunity to get involved in service, because these are the things. It's because of my service that I'm now able to sit on a panel with both you, Rachel, and Shauna, and learn from you both as well, and sitting at different parts of the world as well. And so these are the things that we have to look at and look beyond compensation in a monetary way. I know that, as I said again, as young people, and I can speak from that position, because I too experience for myself. I won't be a hypocrite. There are times when I'm just like, I'm doing everything right. I'm not getting paid the way I want to get paid. I'm not, and I want more for myself. I want to travel more. I want to be able to afford things for myself more. But we have to look beyond these things, because these things come and they go. as soon as you get them, they're also the way. But these lessons that you learn from these opportunities that you get, they stay with you for life. And so I am just conquering the points of networking, conquering the points of, the skills and the life lessons that you get out of being involved in service and, giving back to your communities. And that's what you gain for yourself.
Right. And I concur. I've told folks when I talk about the impact that volunteering has had on my life, not just a skill building, which you can use on your resume and are transferable. That's experience. Reference letters you can get, but I've never had to interview for a job ever.
Look at that.
And if I went into what was an interview, it was more because it's a formality. But the jobs I've had have come out of when I volunteer or having a mentor and having doors open. And as, was it Morgan or Shauna? I think it was Morgan who said, people are calling your name in places that you are not even ready for, in rooms that you're not even in. In rooms that you may think, I'm not even ready for that. But they're saying your name in places because of how you've demonstrated your commitment. You've been conscientious, you've been timely, you build your communication skills, all of that around volunteering, and without getting a cent. There's nothing tangible you're getting in return except for the passion, growing that passion in you, building your skills. Like there's no monetary exchange, right? Volunteering, but you still show up. So I haven't had to interview as you would call it interviewing, right? For a resume cold and sending it in. The full-time jobs I've had my entire life before I went full-time into business, it was through places I volunteered or having a mentor. And I honestly believe it's because I started volunteering so young. You plant seeds. And that's what I even teach my son. Every decision you make is a seed. And you have seeds that have a quick harvest, right? With no time, you're going to reap what you sow. And you have seeds that you plant over time, and eventually you reap a huge harvest. So every time that you choose to give back to someone who's less fortunate, every time you choose to volunteer, every time you show up and give your all, that's a seed that you're planting. And you have to, it's a law of science, you have to reap what you sow, right? And so that balance of knowing, yes, it's important to give back, because I think as human beings, for God who said it's a rent you pay for being on earth, is giving back it's giving back, right? The balance between that and yes, using your talents and skills to build a career. But I think the two of them, I think when you volunteer, it really can be that catapult. It really can be that one secret sauce that differentiates you from your counterparts when it comes to advancing in a career. So I'm glad that both of you so passionately really went deep when it came to what the benefits are, because I think that this is what the generation needs to hear, is what am I getting out of it, and understanding that it's okay to want to get something out of volunteering. And matter of fact, you should want to get something out of volunteering, because that's what helps you to select the right organization, the right cause, right?
I just wanted to interject, Shauna.
Sure.
I don't mean to cut you off, but you said that's such an important point that I just wanted to just touch on it before it even slipped me. You said something about separating from your counterparts. And I just wanted to add this little quick thing, because especially now in Jamaica, or I mean, even across the world, everybody's just so brilliant, everybody's so brilliant, everybody's qualified, everybody has the experience. So what sets you apart? I remember even one time my brother said one of the opportunities that he would have gained is because of his service in a particular organization, and that is why he was selected. So I just really wanted to point that out, because we're all in this race of life, but we all basically possess the same things. We all have the experience, we all have the qualifications, we are all capable. So what is it now that will set you apart and give you that opportunity to push you, and catapult you to a higher, level, or into a different opportunity other than your counterpart? Not to say that you're better, but what is it that will give you that edge? And I think that's just so important about community service as well. So I just wanted to add that point when you mentioned about, your counterparts.
And you're right. You're right that it's so important. Your network really can be the difference. And there's no way to build that faster for me, one of the fastest ways I built my network was volunteering. It wasn't even my career. It was the volunteering as well. So I want to shift a little to talk about what's happening now when it comes to the 40 and under, really becoming connected to organizations. So in the work I do, I'm a licensed nonprofit consultant. In the work I do, a lot of times with boards, one of the pain points that a lot of organizations will experience is that younger volunteer donor pool and getting access and getting them engaged. And a lot of boards struggle with really building that bridge between the work that they do and recruiting young people who can be passionate about the work. And I think a part of it is not just a generational thing, but I think is part of what we are talking about before is how you're selling it, how you're marketing it to folks who are 40 and under, and even folks who are, we talk about the late 20s and younger, that gratification of what am I getting out of this? So the first question I want to ask the two of you, because I know you're both very engaged in community work, is what are some of the disconnects, if any, if any, that you're seeing between organizations and folks, do-gooders who've been around for a very long time, and the younger generation who really are going to be the torchbearers, the ones who keep the work going? What are some of the disconnects that you're seeing? And either one of you can start.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I think one of the issues is mentorship because I know, I won't say Shauna doesn't know, but I've experienced it. I think one of the issues is really mentorship. I think, especially here in Jamaica, we have an issue with and sustainable mentorship. So we'll always have persons who are willing to say, okay, I'll mentor you and I'll take you under my wing, and then it falls flat there. What I do know about young people, we want to know that somebody cares about us, somebody sees us, somebody wants to hear us, and somebody wants to get us involved. And if we feel like it's just haphazard where, it's a one-off time, we then see through that. We see that it's not really genuine. It's just, okay, I'm doing my due diligence, I did my part, and I'm leaving it right there. So I would say one of the disconnects is definitely sustainable mentorship, in that if we're taking on a young person and encouraging them to be a part of an organization and so forth, let's try to ensure that it is a continued experience for them. It's not just a one-time opportunity. Another thing is that we also have some persons in the above 40 era in the do-gooders who are like the gatekeepers sometimes, and who unfortunately, we don't allow young persons to come in and bring new, fresh ideas and change. One of my favorite teachers at the law school would have said, we cannot be resisting change. And I actually saw that when COVID came and we had to basically shift our entire learning approach and learning experience to try to adapt and adjust. And I think that's one of the things that we have to know, also be open to. Our ideas are different because, of course, we're a different generation, so things will be done differently, but we also have to be open to them, because that will also allow us to draw more young people into wanting to give back and do service as well. So I think my two greatest points, like I would have said, is the mentorship, sustainable mentorship, and also just being open to new and fresh ideas. Just because something was working 10 plus years doesn't mean that a new thing won't work, So I think it's a balance between those two things.
Good points. Shauna, anything to add?
Absolutely. And I echo my colleague here, Morgan's points. Absolutely. And mentorship is so amazing and important, and exactly how you say it, right? You want people to be pouring into your own life, right? And mean it. And I will move into leadership. That leadership is not management. It's specifically transformational leadership. It's not easy, and I know that it takes work and it takes intentionality to be that kind of leader for people. And I will say that we still, in that sector of the criminal justice, I volunteered on a few different task force, and I see how sometimes we all want our ideas to be up there, right? And, we're very passionate people overall. I've also worked for the Jamaica Canadian Association, and association is made up of a lot of seniors, which are very passionate. We all have that Jamaican blood of passion. If you can't swim and take the hard blows, you just can't make it, right? And I think that's like the inside thing that they really feel like, right? Like you have to just jump in and accept whatever they're saying, and but anyway, I really feel like transformational leadership means that you're setting your own, it asks questions, and it kind of goes in alignment with mentorship. It asks questions and it allows for other people it sets yourself aside, and it allows other people, it invites other people in, because the goal is growth. Right. And so when you find that person who just is so interested in your growth, it makes you climb over mountains. Right. And that is something that I learned in the MBA, because that was one of those courses that we took. And when there's a leader in your life, it because you're growing. They're allowing you to grow. And that is what I think is missing sometimes when we are around the sphere, whether it's a career, whether it's the family. I could even speak for myself in a personal story, is how my relationship with the generation after me, which would be a sibling, and like, how do I, how I treat her? I think I'm the older sister, so I'm supposed to tell her what to do. That's how I approach it. And now that she has allowed me to see that, no, that's not how she needs it to happen.
Yes.
And that is how none of us want that to happen for us. When we're in that mentorship relationship, when we're in the workplace and we have that manager, whichever sphere it is, we don't want somebody to be jumping at us and telling us to do this and do that. We want somebody to listen to us and hear what we're saying. And to me, that's what a leader does. They help to guide us, and they will correct us, but they correct us in a way that is growth oriented. So in the end, to me, one of the things that's missing, that will continue to cause a challenge for us in this whole volunteers, is about that leadership. Because leadership equals growth. That's what we want.
I mean, you guys have said two mouthfuls, dropped some gems, and I 1000% concur with what you've both said. And I think a part of the struggle, and I'm going to speak specifically for organizations that are Jamaican led, is culture. And as Shauna mentioned, it's culture of I'm the elder, and I've done this for a long time, and so I know best, right? This generation has access to information at a speed that is beyond, like, in humanity, has never happened. And so it is quite likely that someone can be doing the work for 20 years. I've been doing it for 5, and I am just as knowledgeable, just as versed as the person who's been doing it for 20, 30 years, because of just how much information is available, how much access. I've probably volunteered a ton and gotten a lot of experiences. But I think that seat at the table and a voice, right? So it's not just giving me a seat at the table and inviting me to become a part of the organization because I'm young, I know social media, I have a big network, I can fundraise, you just want to show face about young blood, but it's a voice, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Folks I've often heard it say it's really not maybe as valid a conversation in the Jamaican space because we're all Black. But we know diversity, equity, and inclusion, race is just one of the many factors. Age, economics, experience, all those things are part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for me, And even though I say I'm on the older end of the young crowd, right, in my early 40s, one of the things that I've even struggled with as someone who's very passionate about work and being incredibly smart, yes, I'll say it, incredibly experienced, a huge network, is that very thing, is that it's okay to be inviting me to have a seat at the table is the extent to which, well, we have young people that's a part of our organization. So why are you still struggling to fundraise and get donors and struggling with your social media and your website and so many other things? Because it's one thing to have a seat, and we know this, right? As people of the Black diaspora, we know that a lot of times we may get invited to have a seat at the table because it shows face. But do we have a true voice? Are you really understanding what my skill set is and understanding how that skill set can help you grow? Are you understanding that this is not 20 years ago? The generation and what is expected and what the forecast is for the future, like technology 10 years from now, it's gonna be totally floored, right? Are you looking towards the future, or are you still like Lot's wife looking back, repeatedly looking back, and talking about what has happened before? And that's fine. I think that understanding your history and where you're coming from is really important. The groundwork, the pioneers, the people who put in the work in the fields, the kind of in the trenches, so that we can be where we are. I think that's important. That's a part definitely of moving forward. But if more time is spent looking backwards than looking forwards, and understanding that unless you engage young people in the work is going to die with you. It's not going to continue. It can't. Look at organizations that have not survived and are not thriving, right? If there's not a mix of young people, a mix of seasoned folks that are doing the work, that's really what happens in this space, right? So I know we don't have much time, but there's two other questions that I'm hoping, Shauna, you can have with us a few extra minutes. There's two other questions that I definitely want to get to before we get off of here right now. So I'm trying not to set the time of day because people can be watching it anytime. The joys of pre-recording. All right. So we talked about kind of like what is missing from that gap. Like what is the gap between organizations that have been around for a long time who may be struggling with really getting and what needs to be offered, right? I want to talk a little bit about specifically what are some things that these organizations can do to recruit and engage, right? You talk about what's missing. Here's what, when I'm coming to look at a board, here's what is missing for me. But what are maybe one or two things for each of you that you would advise organizations who may be watching this interview, who may be struggling with attracting, I'm going to call them the 40 and under crowd. Maybe not just attracting because it's at the table, but keeping, right? Attracting and keeping, engaging. What are one or two actions that you think organizations can take to begin to attract and retain? Either one of you can start.
Go ahead, Morgan.
Okay, no problem. So you mentioned something really important a while ago, just now, Rachel. You said it's one thing to invite me to the seat at the table, but it's another thing to really understand my skill sets and so forth, because you made such an important point and I just felt it to my core. A lot of times we're sitting in the organization and the organization is still struggling with social media. The organization is still struggling with advertisement and that kind of thing. And these are the things that are now attracting to young people. We have to give them what they want. So one of the things I would say is that when you invite young people to the table, allow them to contribute to the conversation. So one of the most important things, like I said, is social media. You spoke about technology, and that is what gets us. If I'm scrolling leisurely on Instagram and I see a sponsored ad about an organization and I'm like, oh, wow, this is in my area. This is something that I'd like to do. Click, I'm on it and I want to be a part of it, So I've seen so many people ask to join my organization through Instagram, you know what I mean? Not through seeing the work, I'm doing in the streets, but seeing it online. So I think one of those things is definitely through social media. How do we get to young people on social media? How do we show them that their ideas that they're contributing matter as well? That's one of the things I would also say. I would also say bring what they want to them. So what is it that they want? How do they want to do it? So you mentioned something, and I think I had said it too. We've been doing something for 10 years and we're thinking that it works, it's good. How do we now change that to see how it fits what we want now? So one of the biggest things, like especially with learning now in Jamaica, because we weren't having face-to-face classes because of COVID, we have to change the way of our learning, and we have to now see gamification as one of the options to try to attract students to get involved and be engaged. So this is it as well. How can we transform the face of volunteering and charity work? How can we make it look different? Do we have to actually go to places to do volunteer work? Can we do it from the comfort of our homes? How do we contribute? How do we still engage people? And these are the different ideas that we have to allow young people to contribute. It cannot be, I'm here and I'm a part of the group, but I'm just doing what you say. It can't be do as I say. It has to be, how can we do together? Because our voices matter as well. And as you said, we're now living in a time where you may have done something for 10 years, but what is being done now is what really attracts people. So we have to bring it to them. And that's also another thing that I would also say, even though I've been like kind of intertwining, but very important as I wrap up, because I know you want to wrap up, but how do we bring these programs to them? Like actually bring it to them. We have to go into the communities and seek them. It shouldn't always just be, oh, I need to come and see.
Uh-oh, Morgan, we lost you.
Oh no, you're not hearing me?
There you go. Yeah, now I'm hearing you.
I'm so sorry. I was just saying, how do we now go into the communities and recruit young persons and get them to come and come on board? So sometimes we have to bring them, and like I said, in other ways, we'd have to find creative ways to actually bring it to them so that they can be a part. But I definitely said those things will definitely attract persons and young persons more specifically, to want to join the organizations and just to better it and sustainable development of the organizations as well.
Awesome. Shauna?
So I'll start with currently what I'm doing and what I like. So right now I'm actually on a production team with the What's a Guan talk show, and big up to Donovan Simon for starting that out. And so that's a show that discusses Jamaican and Canadian issues home and abroad. He started on his own, but then he decided to have a national initiative last year. So it's been exactly about a year now since we've been meeting. And what I like about the way that Donovan leads is that he allows all of our opinions to matter. And we decided what we're going to do, how we are going to, what role we're going to take. He listened to what our strengths were, and the show, it just developed something that started out as a conversation, just naturally developed, and suddenly we have a team of people and we're all volunteering. We don't live in the same province, and not, at least most of us don't, and we're connecting online every week. I mean, that's a lot of time, and the show hosts on a different day, so that takes a lot of time. And I think what works is, again, I had mentioned leadership. I think it's so crucial, and leadership means that you are listening. So you're listening and you are you're creating the space for people's strengths to come about. And you do that by asking questions, and you do that by letting us decide what we are doing. I would say that sometimes now, where I find it to be lacking, and I've also been a part of those spaces, that the leadership is poor. And to me, somebody who likes plans and structures, and you know what, at the end of the day, we're not volunteering because we have all the time in the world.
Right.
We're volunteering because We might like
Yes.
the thing that we're choosing to do. And not because we're coming here to give you an hour, that means that we have time to waste. And so I think that when we lack the structure, we lack the ability to plan those strategic plans. You don't even know what your vision is. You don't know what you're looking forward to do. You don't know what the objectives should do. You don't know what your goals are. You don't really have anything that's written, and you just don't have anything. And so where do I fit in? How do you, and to me, that is what encompasses leadership. Right? Like now when I come into a space to volunteer, I want to hear what your vision is. I want to hear what your expectations are. And when I listen to what you just told me, I want to now say, you know what? I can use my strengths in this specific area. I get to choose to do that. And it becomes a conversation, and it becomes people working together. It's not easy to win the hearts of people who are volunteering, but and keep them committed. No, it's not. And many organizations struggle. And I am literally a part of an organization that is like that. In my values are loyalty, commitments. I'm motivated on my own. But when the things that I need are lacking, the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling that somebody value my time, I don't feel motivated. And now I get to be in a place where I have to make a decision about what I want to do, because none of us want our time to be wasted, and we want to be a part of a space of growth. So to just end this, I would just want to say that my first thing is leadership, and that the fact is that we have to plan. Yeah, it's not laissez-faire approach. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't work. We need plans. We need, set the expectations, set the standards, create not the rigidness, but create the space, so that when I come in, I can look to see what you're doing, and I can click a button and say, that is where I fit in. Hopefully that answers the question.
I know I normally get preaching on a Sunday, but y'all today, y'all bringing a word. And I will just quickly add, because I have one last question that I want to close out with. I want to quickly add also that when it not just comes to leadership, but when it comes to the culture of the organization, because that starts at the top, right? So the culture of the organization has to be one of understanding how we complement each other and not competition.
Yes.
And that is something, those two C's, and knowing the difference between the two, has what's transformed my life as I look to be more collaborative with women, right? Because I am an extremely competitive person, right? But when we look at collaboration, when we look at going further because we're going together, it means that when I'm really looking at it, you're not my competition, you're my complement. What is something that I do well that you don't? What is something you do well that I don't? And that's our meeting point. It is not what we both do well and then we're competing, so who can do it better? No, right? So really a part of cultures of organizations has to be that, for me, has to be that collaborative piece. You are not looking to compete with other organizations doing the same work. I need to know, because I've been in the nonprofit sector now, just finished my 26th year, and I've seen nonprofits come and go during that time. And I know that competition does not work. Collaboration and being able to understand how we complement each other in this work goes a long way. I want to be a part of something I know is going to last a very long time. And so for me, if I don't see a culture of collaboration with other organizations, and a lot of what you spoke about, both Shauna and Morgan, as in leadership, and what you're looking for speaks to collaboration. You're willing to collaborate with me as a volunteer. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's what you need. Here's what you don't need. And then figuring out how can we collaborate together so that this organization can move forward. So for me, a big point is I don't want to be in a competitive space when it comes to me giving back my time and understanding that in order for us to go further, we have to go together. If you want to get there fast, go alone. but organizations can't survive on going fast. You cannot. I've seen them come and go, but we can certainly have, when we talk about legacy, when we collaborate and work together. So the last question I have for the both of you is, we can end on a personal note, kind of how we started. So when it comes to leadership, because you both mentioned leadership a lot and very passionately when you were talking about what connects you to work, to good work, what connects you to want to give up a weekend, to go get up early and go do something you're not being paid for. You talked about leadership, and I know a part of volunteering is building those leadership skills. So I want to end this by having each of you share, what is one thing you've learned about leadership, about yourself as a leader over the time that you've been volunteering? I'll start with Shauna.
Okay.
One thing, I know you probably have a long list.
So what is one thing I've learned about leadership?
And about yourself as a leader.
I'm still growing as a leader, and I understand that the importance of listening, that emotional intelligence. When I look over my years, I feel that I'm glad that I'm growing, and I'm glad that I'm changing. However, I can understand and I appreciate that a lot of times when, in the 20s, you're just really excited and you think you just know it, it all. And, you get to your 30s and now it's like I'm finally able to settle in and say, oh, okay, there's a lot of areas that I can grow in. And now the wonderful thing is, because I'm developing that understanding of my own self and I'm becoming more aware, these are the things that also is helpful in leading people. And you lead people from an emotional intelligent space where I can set myself aside and not take things personally, especially when the younger person come and was like me. I can totally understand and see through it and see, what is the end outcome. And, so I guess the ultimate point I'm making is that that need for emotional intelligence. I would say that sort of helps growth, and that emotional intelligence, it takes time to develop. But when it does, it's beautiful, and it helps with the collaboration. It helps with the, what else did we say? It helps with just bringing people together, collaborate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Morgan?
For me, I too echo the same sentiments as Shauna, in that I'm still growing as a leader. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned about myself in leadership, is that there's always something to learn. And that comes from learning from others. So to be a leader, sometimes you too have to follow. So not that you're following the crowd, but you have to follow the lead of all of the persons who you have to lead, And so I'm learning that, to take their ideas, to take their, expressions, to take their actions and also apply it to myself and see how I can use that to help me help them as well. Another thing that I've also learned as well too, it may be a little unfortunate, is that sometimes leadership is a lonely road. And when you decide, especially in community service and charity work, when you decide to step out and do something that's probably not so, glamorous and so favorable to everyone else, sometimes you're on that road alone. But should that ever stop you from being passionate, or should that ever stop you from standing your ground on what you believe in or how you think that you can help somebody else? I think not. So it's something that I've also learned, that sometimes to get things done, you have to just do it on your own. Because like just most recently, I decided to do a back to school mini treat, give back with one of my friends. And I mean, I have I would say a good enough following on social media, and I would post about several other things and people respond. And when I post about, contributing to this back to school treat, you'd barely see any responses. And I had to even post and say, I'm asking you all to go back to that previous post because I see you responding to other things, but you're not responding to this one. So sometimes it's hard because, you're on this journey alone about something that you're passionate about, but that should never dim your light or, fuse your passion that you have for wanting to carry out something. So even though sometimes it may be lonely, it shouldn't stop you from, passionately and actively pursuing what you think is right and what you believe in. So those are the two, few things that I've learned about myself and just leadership in general.
Well, let me tell you, Morgan and Shauna, this conversation has been wonderful. This is definitely a great way to start a Saturday.
Yes, definitely.
On my weekend is having this conversation. So this has been so amazing. And I will say that I think the two of you are really great examples of the quality of young people who are out there passionate about community work and who want to be a part of organizations, who want to help move missions forward. So for those of you who are watching, we exist, they exist, right? There is a generation that wants to give back, is longing to give back, but you have to know how to reach us. You have to know how to give us a voice at the table and what is it going to entail to keep us. The organizations that you're both connected with is absolutely blessed and highly favored because you are two very amazing young women. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me about this topic. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to join us for the conference in October. I'm definitely going to add a tribute to the list because, wow, this has been, you guys, wise, right? Wisdom is sometimes not about years or age, right? Wisdom is experience as well. So thank you both so much for joining me. Thank you all for watching this episode of JamTalk. Please tune in for our next episode. We're going to go back to doing this once a month. So we will see you again next month for another episode of JamTalk. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.